A mother goes missing, her last moments caught on a device she never knew was recording. Detectives face a twisted web of lies from a suspect who clings to outrageous stories, even as the evidence mounts against him. But when they confront him with an audio recording that chills to the bone, everything changes. This is the shocking case of Gretchen Anthony, where the truth was buried, both literally and figuratively. Stay tuned to find out how detectives crack this disturbing case wide open. In 2020, Gretchen Anthony suddenly fell very ill, requiring hospitalization. However, her family had no idea this was the start of something far darker. When they didn't hear from her for a few days, their worry shifted from her health to her safety. Gretchen had gone missing, leading investigators into a complicated web of deception. The situation became even stranger when a final clue seemed to come from Gretchen herself. In March 2020, Gretchen, aged 51, and her 43-year-old husband, David Anthony, were going through a rough patch. After losing his job, David decided to take a road trip from Florida to California, leaving Gretchen behind in Jupiter, Florida. On March 21st, Gretchen told friends and family she was feeling sick. Over the following days, her messages described worsening symptoms, including being moved to a specialized CDC facility after testing positive for COVID-19. But then, she went completely silent, alarming her loved ones. When they couldn't reach her, they contacted the police, and attention quickly turned to David, who had been traveling alone. Authorities tracked him down in Las Cruces, New Mexico. When police stopped David, he appeared confused but cooperative, insisting he had last seen Gretchen on March 21st, the same day she mentioned feeling ill. He said they had separated and that things were amicable despite the ongoing divorce. However, something felt off. Gretchen's recent texts was strange, and friends noticed her communication style had changed. As police dug deeper, they discovered contradictions in the COVID story. Gretchen's ex-husband, Jeff, found out from a doctor that no such CDC facility existed. Investigators then searched Gretchen's home and found unusual evidence, including a suspicious stain in the driveway and strong chemical smells reported by neighbors. David maintained that Gretchen was in hiding after uncovering a serious conspiracy involving illegal activity. He claimed she feared for her life and had gone underground, staying out of contact even with those close to her. Despite his story, police found troubling clues that pointed to something far more sinister. Neighbors reported hearing a woman's terrified screams from Gretchen's home early on March 21st, followed by silence. Meanwhile, security cameras captured a black pickup truck matching David's near the scene. Authorities began connecting the dots, suspecting foul play. David, under interrogation, hinted at deeper, mysterious forces, but offered no clear answers. Detectives held back key evidence, hoping he might slip up. Ultimately, what happened to Gretchen remained a mystery that investigators were determined to unravel, believing they were close to revealing the truth. The conversation vividly illustrates the high stakes and emotionally charged nature of a criminal investigation, underscoring the painstaking process that detectives undergo to piece together the truth. In this intense scenario, law enforcement officials are deeply immersed in an interrogation, aiming to unravel the mystery behind a serious crime, likely a murder. The back-and-forth dialogue between the detectives and the suspect reveals the tension of the situation, as detectives use various strategies to extract a confession and critical information about the crime. Central to the interrogation are the contradictions in the suspect's account, which are being systematically exposed by the detectives. They confront the suspect with damning surveillance footage and forensic evidence, such as the work of cadaver dogs and the presence of blood spatter. This evidence serves as a crucial element in the investigation, and the detectives leverage it to dismantle the suspect's defenses, pushing for an admission of guilt and the disclosure of the victim's whereabouts. The interrogation strategy includes a powerful emotional appeal related to the victim's daughter, designed to elicit a sense of guilt and urgency from the suspect. Detectives emphasize the need for closure for the child, using this angle to pressure the suspect into confessing. The narrative reveals how investigators try to manipulate the emotional weight of the situation to compel the suspect to reveal the truth, highlighting the psychological tactics employed in such high-pressure situations. The dialogue also provides insight into the suspect's troubled personal background, shedding light on factors like mental health issues, strained relationships, and financial instability. This context is important for understanding the suspect's possible motives and behaviors, adding depth to the investigation. The interplay between personal struggles and criminal behavior often provides key insights into the suspect's actions and mindset. Modern investigative techniques play a significant role in the conversation, particularly the use of video footage and cloud storage to gather and analyze evidence. Detectives reference the retrieval of critical evidence from digital sources, demonstrating how contemporary methods complement traditional investigative approaches. This aspect of the case reflects the evolving nature of criminal investigations in the digital age. As the interrogation progresses, the dialogue highlights the struggle between maintaining a strong investigative stance and addressing the emotional and psychological state of the suspect. Detectives balance their assertive questioning with attempts to appeal to the suspect's sense of morality and guilt. This dynamic showcases the complex nature of interrogations, where law enforcement must navigate both factual evidence and emotional manipulation. Ultimately, the conversation underscores the relentless pursuit of truth in criminal investigations. Despite the suspect's continued denial and attempts to deflect, the detectives remain steadfast in their quest for justice. The discussion emphasizes the challenges and strategies involved in solving a crime, reflecting the determination and skill required by law enforcement to uncover the truth and ensure accountability. This conversation highlights the intense and tense nature of an investigation, where detectives are piecing together clues and evidence to solve a crime. The dialogue between different speakers suggests an interrogation, where law enforcement confronts someone suspected of a crime, likely a murder. The interrogation focuses on inconsistencies in the suspect's story, surveillance footage, and forensic evidence like cadaver dogs and blood spatter. The investigators are pressuring the suspect to admit guilt and reveal the location of the victim, using emotional appeals related to the victim's daughter to push for a confession. The narrative also delves into the suspect's troubled background, including mental health struggles, strained relationships, and financial dependency. The use of video footage and cloud storage to retrieve key evidence is highlighted, which aligns with modern investigative techniques. The interrogation reveals a tense standoff between David and the detectives as they repeatedly challenge him with evidence and implore him to tell the truth. Despite being shown damning photos and videos, David remains defiant, offering inconsistent and implausible explanations. The detectives leverage emotional appeals, pointing out how the suspect could at least provide closure for his daughter, while also pressing hard on the fact that they have overwhelming evidence against him. David's responses alternate between denial, deflection, and a stubborn refusal to acknowledge the truth. He questions the validity of the evidence, demands to see proof, and tries to shift the narrative, even invoking unrelated topics like COVID-19. The detectives counter these evasions by bringing up forensic evidence, including the presence of cadaver dogs and DNA matches, which David weakly attempts to dismiss. The interaction is a mix of strategy and psychological pressure as the detectives try to break down David's defenses, forcing him to confront the reality of the situation. However, as David retreats further into denial, the interrogation shows signs of reaching an impasse, with the detectives eventually considering alternative ways to apply pressure, such as involving his daughter's feelings. Speaker 2, all right. In the final stages of the interrogation, the detectives attempt a new tactic, appealing to David's conscience and giving him an opportunity to explain the situation as a terrible accident rather than deliberate murder. They even shift his handcuffs to make him more comfortable and play a recording of his daughter pleading to know what happened to her mother, hoping to evoke some sense of guilt or empathy. Despite these efforts, David remains defiant, clinging to his implausible explanations and denying any direct involvement. The detectives emphasize the overwhelming evidence, including blood evidence and the unlikelihood of Gretchen surviving the attack. Yet David persists in dodging the truth, becoming increasingly evasive and frustrated. The detectives try to appeal to his sense of morality, asking how revealing Gretchen's location would make him feel, but he continues to avoid giving any clear answers. The breakthrough finally comes after David's arrest, when the authorities present a critical piece of evidence. Audio recorded by Gretchen's Alexa device during her final moments. This recording, combined with other evidence, seals the case. David eventually pleads guilty to second-degree murder and kidnapping in exchange for leading police to Gretchen's remains, which were found behind a Walmart. The discovery aligns with a tip about strange smells and buzzards in the area. David is sentenced to 38 years in prison. Even after his sentencing, he continues to minimize his actions, leaving a recorded message for his brother that seems to rationalize what he did. This reinforces his inability to fully confront the impact of his crime. The case highlights not only the tragic end for Gretchen, but also the lengths detectives had to go to in order to extract the truth from a suspect determined to evade responsibility until the very end. Here's an outro that wraps up the story and encourages viewer engagement, and that's the tragic story of Gretchen Anthony, a case where justice was served, but at a heartbreaking cost. What do you think about the chilling evidence and the suspect's relentless lies? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this video gripping, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more true crime content where we dive deep into the darkest cases. Thanks for watching, and remember, the truth always comes to light, no matter how deeply it's buried.